Welcome to Stop and Scare. I'm so glad you found me. Stay a while and let me scare the hell out of you. Subscribe if you're new and like the video to help the channel grow. If you would like your story featured on an upcoming video, email the email in the description box below. Sit back, relax, and enjoy a good scare. Grizzly bears are the largest predator in North America, but they seldom pose a threat to outdoorsmen who've taken the proper precautions. According to the National Park Service, historical data shows that on average, one person a year dies from a grizzly bear attack, and since the turn of the century, grizzly and black bears collectively have killed fewer than 50 people in North America. So, though fatal bear run-ins are rare, each year a handful of hunters come face to face with these mighty animals and are forced to fight for survival or simply get lucky and live to tell the tale. One such hunter was Richard Wesley, who late last month survived a black bear attack while turkey hunting in Ontario. A video of the encounter seen nearly 4 million times serves as a reminder of why bears shouldn't be taken lightly. In October of 2016, Stephen Vouch, 29, was attacked by a 275-pound black bear while on an Idaho sheep hunt. He goes on to say, "I've hunted with my friends Bobby and Chris a lot over the years, but this was our first time floating the West Fork of the Salmon River. It was the day 14 of our trip, and we hadn't seen a good-sized ram yet, so we were still pushing it forward. That day, we'd run some big rapids, so we were exhausted by the time we stopped on Sheep Creek. We set up camp and ate, then I crashed at 10:30. I was sleeping in a bivy sack next to Bobby, with a tarp strung over all of us. Well, at 2 a.m., something woke me. It felt as if I was being pulled by my hair. The first thing I did was grab the back of my head, which was all wet, and then I saw this shadowy figure over me. Without realizing it, when the bear had bitten my skull, I'd whacked him in the mouth out of reflex, which made me jump and knock the tarp down on top of us, with my head still right between his front paws. I yelled and started reaching for my pistol, but the bear had shoved it out of reach while rummaging around. But then Bobby woke up and saw him standing over me and grabbed his Judge revolver. He lifted the tarp to see, and then, sticking the gun right above my head, shot the bear in the face from 1 foot away. After that, the bear ran up a tree above us, but I managed to find my rifle and put him down quickly. There was blood everywhere. Bobby and Chris helped me clean the wounds and skin the bear. Then we just slept late the next day and kept looking for sheep. It was one of the greatest adventures of my life, and further instilled why you should make sure the guys you're hunting with know what they're doing. This could have ended up a lot worse than it did." In the fall of 2010, Kim Wunderlich was bow hunting for elk in Montana's gravelly mountains when a grizzly bear charged. It was September 17th, my 49th birthday. I was bow hunting with my friend John Wasser, and on this day we rode our ATVs about 5 miles from our camp before walking into a drainage. We could hear buggling on the ridgeline, and by the late morning we'd gotten on some bulls, but no shots. It started getting hot, so we decided to hike out. At around 1:30 we were scaling a timbered hillside when we heard a branch break above us. I looked up, and there were 2 grizzly cubs about 25 yards away, standing on their hind legs. I turned to John and said, "Bear!" Just then, the sow came at me full speed. I just remember seeing claws in her mouth. This wasn't a rear-up attack. It was like getting hit by a car. Right before she barreled into me, I stuck my longbow sideways in her mouth. As we tumbled down the hill, John was screaming, trying to get the bear's attention. He thought she was going to kill me. The bear probably weighed 500 to 600 pounds. After we came up to stop 15 or 20 yards below, she bit me really high up on the inner thighs. Then she released me. For a moment I just lay still. I didn't move until I heard her woofing up a hill. When John got to me, he was shocked to see that I was standing. My arrows were everywhere. I could feel blood running down my legs, but I didn't want to look at them. Fear doesn't enter until you know what you're up against. It was about 1.5 miles to the ATVs, and we had about 1,000 vertical feet to climb. But from that point on, my only purpose was to get out of there. We packed the weapons and gauze and went. By the time we got to the hospital in Dillon, it was 8:15 at night. The doctor said the bear missed my femoral artery by 1 centimeter. Officials from Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks took DNA samples from my pants because of another bear attack in the area. So far, we haven't heard the results. In October of 2016, a grizzly bear attacked Rick Hollingsworth, 47, while he was hunting elk in Alberta, Canada. That morning, my cousin Rob and I were headed out to hunt near the Simonette River, but only I had a rifle with me, since Rob didn't have a big game license at the time. We were about 1/2 mile from the truck when we noticed fresh wolf tracks in the snow. As we kept walking, we saw a spot through the woods where crows were scavenging on a dead animal. I loaded my rifle as we slowly approached, thinking we might come upon a wolf eating the carcass. I heard this low, calling sound, but a big spruce was blocking my view, so I couldn't see what was making it. That's when Rob yelled, "Grizzly!" The bear charged straight at him, and with no time to lift my gun, I fired from the hip and hit the bear's shoulder. As soon as I shot, the grizzly turned and charged me. I shot again, from maybe 8 yards, but it just kept coming. It swiped at me, spraying its own blood everywhere, but I ducked out of the way. When I shot the 3rd time, the bear was no more than 2 feet away from me. Now, we were face to face, and my gun was empty. It swiped at me again, but its arm was hurt. That's when the bear opened its mouth to bite me, and I shoved my gun barrel right down its throat. It chewed on the rifle for a few seconds, but I had stunned it, I think. It backed up 20 yards, giving me a chance to reload and fire a final shot. At last, the bear went off and died in the forest. The whole event lasted just 10 seconds or so, but it was the most scared I've been in my life. I just tried to stay on my feet and remain as big as possible. Grizzlies are beautiful animals, and if there were another way, I would let it live, but it didn't give me that option. In 2009, Orville Sanders, 83, was mauled by a black bear that was wounded during a hunt in the Tahoe National Forest. A group of my friends wanted to get their first bear, so I brought my Plott and Walker hounds to help. When they opened up and started running, I knew they sniffed something big. We caught up with them 30 minutes later under a pin oak, where they were barking up 3 bears. My knees give me my trouble, and I needed a rest. I knew that you shouldn't ever get under a treed bear, so I walked to an older deer trail that I thought was a safe distance from the action. Meanwhile, my friend shot and hit one of the bears. After another shot, the bear suddenly jumped from the tree, cleared my friends, and bounded straight for me. I tried to pull myself up from where I sat, but it was only a moment before he was 6 feet away and rearing up on his hind legs. I threw my hands up to protect my face, and the bear latched onto my arms with his teeth and claws. Then I heard a bang. My friend Charlie had shot the bear right in the head. What happened next is a blur. I remember blood running to the floor of my friend's truck as he doubled the speed limit to the nearest Forest Service station. The next thing I knew, I was in a helicopter with tubes coming out of my arms. Then, I fell into the blackness. I awoke 2 days later in the Sutter Roseville Medical Center. The doctor told me that if I had arrived 1 hour later, I would have died. I had lost 4 pints of blood to that fucking bear. The bear, which weighed almost 300 pounds, had broken my left arm in 4 places. Even after therapy, my left thumb is partially paralyzed, and the shooting pain comes and goes. It's a reminder of how powerful these animals are. I was done for the season, but I'm not done forever. I'm just going to watch where I sit. On the afternoon of Sunday, August 2nd, 2009, one old emaciated brown bear became of great personal concern to Greg Brush. This is his story. Brush, a veteran salmon fishing guide from the town of Saldonta, was walking his dogs on a rare day off from work. On his hip was a large handgun, a Ruger chambered for the powerful .454 cartridge. Brown bears are a constant presence in Brush's neighborhood, and many residents feel the largely unhunted animals have little fear of man. Because of many bear-related incidents in the area, Brush always has brown bears on his mind, even when walking a well-maintained road. On just such a road, less than 500 yards from his house, Brush stopped when he heard a twig snap behind him. Turning his head towards the sound, Brush saw a monstrous brown bear charging towards him. There was no warning, he stresses. None of the classic teeth popping or woofing, raising up on hind legs, or bluff charging that you read about. When I spotted him, he was about 15 yards, his head down and his ears back. He was coming like a freight train, in total chase mode. Brush instinctively backpedaled to avoid the charge, drawing the Ruger from its holster. I fired from the hip as he closed the distance, Brush recalls. I know I missed the first shot, but I clearly hit him after that. I believe I fired 4 or 5 shots. Brush finally fell on his back, on the edge of the road. Miraculously, the bear collapsed a mere 5 feet from his boot soles, leaving claw marks in the road where Brush had, only seconds before, been standing. The bear was moaning, his huge head still moving, as Brush aimed the Ruger to fire a finishing shot. By then, my gun had jammed, Greg says. I frantically called my wife on my cell phone and told her to bring a rifle. When she arrived, I finished the bear. Greg had to file a Defense of Life Property report after the incident. Biologists determined that the bear, a boar that measured 9'6" from nose to tail, 10'6" from paw to paw, was between 15 and 20 years old and weighed between 900 and 1,000 pounds and was underweight by an estimated 400 pounds. His teeth were just worn out, and you could see his ribs through his hide, Brush said. Normally they're eating mainly salmon, moose calves, or carrion right now as they put on fat for the winter. This bear had grass in his molars, a sure sign he was starving to death. He would not survive the winter. Brush said the boar's head was huge and heavy. He had mainly scars and wounds, indicating he may have been run off by other bears. 2 biologists and 2 veteran bear guides have told me that this was a predatory charge. There were no carcasses nearby that he was defending, and obviously no cubs to protect. Had I not been able to kill him, he'd have killed and likely eaten me. In the days following the attack, Brush has spent a lot of time pondering many what-ifs, he says. I'm just so thankful that it wasn't my wife and or girls walking down that road, and there are so many little things. What if I hadn't heard that twig? What if I'd missed those shots? I'm not exceedingly religious, but someone was watching over me that day. Just getting that heavy Ruger out of his holster and firing in that time frame is nearly impossible. After the accident, I tried to duplicate that shooting, and the most I could pull off was 2 shots in the seconds it took for the attack to happen. Incidents like these prove the difficulty of managing brown bear population in areas like Kenai Peninsula. The Alaska Department of Fish and Game says that some critical brown bear habitat is threatened by human encroachment from commercial, recreational, and residential developments. Therefore, they severely restrict hunting for browns to help keep populations viable. But such protection is coming at a cost to the human residents of Kenai. While incidents as dramatic as Greg Brush's are rare, human bear encounters are not. Bear guide Charles Allen led Cabela Outfitters Journal host James Lattis and cameraman Carrie Say on a grizzly hunt. The group was charged by a bear. Allen tells the story. We had spotted a good boar and were working within range. There were heavy rain and winds of 25 to 30 knots, but Jim made a perfect heart shot with his .375 at 55 yards. The bear went down, got up, Jim shot again, and it went down for good. "There's 2 more," said the assistant guide James Menifee, and 90 yards away was a very agitated sow and cub. The sow was bouncing up and down. She probably couldn't make us out as humans through the storm. I gathered up everyone and we began to move away, off the rise we were on, but she spotted us and immediately began charging. You can see on the film yelling, "Hey, bear," and waving my hands. I was hoping she would identify me as human, because they are hunted bears and generally very wary, but at that moment she locked onto my eyes in a way no bear ever had. I knew she was coming, so I shouldered my .404. She was a blur coming up that rise. There was no doubt in my mind that she was going to kill or seriously maim me, and then work her way through all 4 of us. I shot just as she came up on her hind legs and began to launch into me, and hit just left of dead center. That rolled her over backwards, and she came up facing the other way. She was pretty broken up. She only made it 20 yards before she died. We marked it off and I shot her at 12 feet. She had a 23-inch skull and was about 9 feet squared. She was 15, which is very old for a bear up here. Thank you guys for watching and listening to the very end. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to my channel for future content. Email your true scary stories to the email in the description box below. Until we meet again, hey, I'm glad you stopped by, and I hope I was able to give you a good scare.